The twist in my son's story that changed everything. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I don't forget the color of the light bars, blue stuttering in rain. When Eric leaned into my shoulder and whispered, "You won't believe who set this up." I'm Daniel, 45, a building inspector who lives by checklists and photographs. Tonight my son is the evidence. Soaked hoodie, trembling hands, an officer flipping a clipboard. The call came at 7:12 p.m. Parent or guardian for Eric Mason? And the world shrank to a hallway smell of mud and ammonia. At work, a missed crack in a foundation can drop a roof years later. At home, the cracks look like sarcasm, missed dinners, and a late car payment. Eric and I spar about screen time and curfews. Alex says I make rules to feel useful. I also know reputations don't lift roofs back onto houses. I have a badge for crawl spaces, not cocktail parties. The school loves appearances. He's suspended pending investigation. The assistant principal says, voice velvet over stone. Alleged grade tampering and unauthorized access to student records. She reads, eyes skipping me like a speed bump. A police report may follow. I taste metal. Eric's jaw ticks, but he won't look at me. There's a flash, someone's phone. The rumor machine clanks to life. I start a mental log. 7:12 p.m. Call. 7:31 p.m. Arrival. 7:38 p.m. Eric's whisper. You won't believe who set this up. Someone, not just something. I turn to the officer. What exactly happens next? He gestures toward a form. If Eric did this, if colleges evaporate, our fragile custody balance tilts, Alex will say I should have seen it. If he didn't, and I defend him, I go to war with the school that approves my home inspections for their capital builds. Either way, I could lose the city I've spent 2 decades stitching. I take Eric's backpack. It's heavier than usual. I think how water finds one weakness and takes the whole house. Who? I ask, quietly, as the officer steps away. Eric's mouth opens, closes. If I say it, it gets worse, he says as the lights paint his face blue. Across the hall, a door opens to the guidance suite. Mr. Keene's shadow crosses the glass. Tell me, I say, and he says, not here, as the doorknob begins to turn. Before tonight, our fights were small, cuticles of a life we never cleaned. Eric hates when I leave notes. Trash out by 7. Router reboot. Call dentist. He calls them citations. I call them oxygen. Alex thinks I confuse parenting with permit reviews. 2 months ago I missed a pickup because a deck collapse kept me till 6:40 p.m. Eric walked home in sleet, drenched, and wouldn't speak to me for a week. He posted a story. Icy sidewalk. 2 seconds. Captioned. Promises are inspections that never pass. I screenshotted it at 6:58 p.m., thinking I'd apologize later. I didn't. Nana Ruth says I learned to love by inventory. She's not wrong. I tally crises and miracles, glue and nails. Ruth keeps her house warm and her sentences short. Look with your eyes. She remembers when we had a beat-up Corolla and copper pans turned black from eggs. Prestige wasn't a god then. Bills were. Somewhere, school rankings and partnerships started controlling who got listened to. Alex plays that game better than I do. Today's fresh wound hits around noon. An angry voicemail from Ms. Sue, Eric's AP Chem teacher. He missed lab again. If this continues, he'll lose the credit. I call back at 12:16 p.m. No answer. I text Eric. We need to talk after school. He sends a thumbs up and nothing else. At 4:03 p.m., neighbor Josh says he saw Eric behind the gym with 2 seniors. Looked tense, he says like weather. I write it down and hate myself for writing it down. At 5:18 p.m., the school portal glitches. I can't see grades. By 6, I'm stirring boxed soup and lining up bowls when the assistant principal's email lands. Subject, notice of suspension pending investigation. Words like unauthorized access and breach clatter like dropped wrenches. Alex calls from a client dinner. Do not make a scene. I keep bowls warm, delete a reply 3 times, and imagine Eric's face when I ask if he did it. By 7, the blue lights are in the rain, and my temper wants to become a siren. I've been wrong before, but I'm certain righteous anger builds clean frames. It doesn't. It hides rot until the house leans. Eric walks beside me now, jaw clenched, and I realize I'm already building a case I haven't heard. The voicemail icon blinks again, and I tap play as Mr. Keen steps into the hall. The official version starts neat. At 10:41 a.m., a login from Eric's student ID accesses the grading system from Lab 2 IMAC number 07. At 10:44, AP Chem midterm weights change from 30% to 20%. At 10:46, a CSV export runs, file named chem_weighted_grades_Q3. CSV. At 10:49, an attendance adjustment marks 2 seniors present when they'd left campus. At 10:52, the account logs out. That's the school's story, printed in 12-point with the district logo. Eric's story limps. He says he was in the cafeteria charging his phone during advisory, watching a physics video at 10:41. Ask anyone, he mutters. Or check cameras. Ms. Sue's voicemail is clipped. Mr. Mason, this behavior is unacceptable. I replay it and hear chairs scraping, as if she left class to call me. Eric points at his backpack. My ID never left my wallet, he says. I remember the neighbors siding behind the gym. I remember wanting to be sure and skipping listening. By 8:22 p.m., the social media rumor wheel is hot. A screenshot of the portal's maintenance banner, captioned, Hacker Hero Strikes Again. Someone tags Eric. Someone tags me. Alex texts, I'm handling comms with PDA friends. Don't post. I don't post. I write. Dates, times, odd nouns. Lab 2 IMAC number 07. I walk Eric through each minute like I'm walking a beam. Who was with you? No one. Which video? Minute physics black holes. I search his phone. The YouTube history shows the video paused at 10:40, then a gap until 10:54. Battery died, he says. At 10:43, doorbell cam shows a package drop at our house clear across town. I'm chasing crumbs and craving bread. If you didn't do this, who did? I ask. He stares at the ceiling like the answer is growing there. Ruth calls at 8:41. Daniel, don't lecture. Look, then decide. I think of Lab 2's layout, of camera angles I've seen during a fire inspection last spring. Mr. Keen loves that room. He calls it the Innovation Lab. If someone wanted quick access and a plausible scapegoat, they'd pick a kid who does tech favors for friends. Do not pull Keen into this, Dad. Not now, please. Morning smells like burned toast and regret. Alex stands by the coffee machine in a suit you could use as a mirror. I spoke with the communications chair, Alex says. We're going to call this a misunderstanding and let the school process work. Translation, be quiet, be small, be grateful for grace. He didn't do it. I say, and I hear the wobble. You don't know that, Alex says, soft as steam. Don't make this bigger. At 9:12 a.m., the doorbell rings. A process server says my name as if it's furniture. He hands me a subpoena-like notice from the district's IT vendor, preserve Eric's devices. Alex's mouth becomes a line you could cut yourself on. You keep your logs, Alex says, but stop acting like a private investigator. I nod without agreement. At 10:05, Ms. Sue emails, parent meeting suggested, guidance office tomorrow 3:30. The signature block gleams with badges and accreditation logos like a general's chest. I call Ruth. He's a boy, she says. They love to be brave and stupid. Don't pick which he is until you know. I drive past the school at lunch. In the parking lot, Mr. Keen laughs with a board member, a hand on the man's sleeve like he's selling a destiny. He glances at my car and smiles. At 1:47 p.m., Josh the neighbor texts a video. Eric behind the gym yesterday with 2 seniors, faces tense, words lost to wind. Timestamp 4:02 p.m., angle shaky. At 1:55, Alex forwards a PDA email thread about digital citizenship. A mom writes, examples must have consequences. My chest tightens like a strap. I take the rest of the day and walk the track, counting steps between doors, watching who badged in, who held doors, who never touched anything. Keen leaves at 2:19 p.m., returns at 2:27, shirt untucked, then retucks as he walks. I file that without knowing why. At 3:30, Eric texts, don't come to school. I type why, then delete. I go anyway. Outside the guidance suite, I pause. The walls here are softer, the carpet eats your footsteps. Inside, certificates watch from frames like silent judges. Mr. Keen smiles without his eyes and shuts the door behind me. Home tilts. Eric retreats to his room and arranges his silence like furniture. I knock once, twice. Food's on the stove. Not hungry, he says, meaning not safe. Alex is all controlled brightness at the table. We should align messaging, Alex says. We say this was a misunderstanding. We cooperate fully. We avoid antagonizing faculty. Faculty, Ruth mutters on speaker. Say people. Say their names. Alex mutes herself. I don't comment. I lay Eric's backpack on the counter and feel its weight again. I ask permission. Can I look? And wait facing the sink. After a long pause, a quiet. Go ahead. Inside, notebooks, gum, a cracked flash drive wrapped in blue painter's tape, and a lanyard with his student badge. The badge's back is slightly bubbled like it was heated and relaminated. I log that. I plug in the flash drive. It blinks red, then mounts, untitled. Inside, a folder named Images 20, JPGs of scanned homework, and one PDF, Keen_photos. PDF. My throat goes tight. The PDF opens to 4 grainy shots. Keen at a coffee shop with a man I don't recognize. Keen passing a small envelope. Keen looking over a student's shoulder in a dim hallway. Timestamped 3:13 p.m. 3:18 p.m. 7:42 p.m. from last week. Angles suggest a phone held low. Eric. I call. He appears, hoodie up. Delete that, he says. What is it? You're not listening. Then softer. Please. Ruth asks from the speaker, what's on it? I describe without adjectives. Alex unmutes. If those are out of context, we get sued, Alex says. I think of the bubbled badge, the CSV export name, the way Keen smiled. Where did you get these? I ask. Eric stares at me like he's the adult and I'm the kid. Dad, you can't fix this with emails and minutes, he says. I wish that were entirely false. He leans against the doorframe, a scar whitening on his knuckle where a scooter wheel bit. In the kitchen light, he looks 5 and 17 at once. The house hums, refrigerator, baseboard heat, ordinary life continuing. I remember teaching him to solder a crooked wire on a science fair lamp, how it flickered to life. I don't know how to solder truss together. Eric's eyes close for a moment. Then he says, I'm protecting someone. I take the flash drive back to Eric's room and sit on the carpet like a rookie, not a father. Who are you protecting? I ask. He chews his sleeve. If I say, they'll break him, he says. Not me, him. Who is they? I ask. He points to the ceiling vent, a teenager's spycraft, then shakes his head. I toggle airplane mode on every device in the room and set my phone to record. First clue. I tell him, and he half smiles like we're building a fort. He empties his pockets, a second phone with no case, cracked at the corner, a sticky note with Keen_mentor at Proton. Me. And Tuesday 7:30 backdoor, badge, a crumpled printout of a Venmo feed showing $590 payments to campus coach from different kids, descriptions, essay review, late pass, Q3 bump. Where did you get this? I screenshot from Jamie's phone, he says. He thought it was normal. My pencil digs grooves. The second phone boots to a blank home screen with Signal and a calculator app that's clearly a vault. The vault opens with 11:06, Eric's birthday reversed. Inside, audio files labeled by date and one text thread, K to E. You're smart, don't be dumb. Swipe in. 10 minutes. A door photo attaches, Lab 2. Timestamp 10:37 a.m., the day of the alleged hack. My breath seesaws. You were supposed to open the door, I say. Or someone wanted it to look like I did, Eric answers. He taps an audio file. A muffled voice, Keen's cadence, says, we adjust, we reward effort, colleges love initiative. Don't be naive. Another file. Cache is vulgar. Use apps. I copy everything to a new folder. Evidence_1. File names matter. In courtrooms, they're bones. Ruth knocks with grocery bags and a look that says she knew to come. Alex texts, do not escalate. I'm meeting with Keen tomorrow. My chest flashes hot. No, I say out loud. Yes? Alex replies from the doorway. When did they arrive? We keep this private. I picture a back room where reputations are mended like suits. I picture my son's name stitched to someone else's crime. Eric whispers, if we move wrong tonight, he'll erase everything. Breadcrumbs, Ruth says, so we lay them. At 6:12 p.m., we drive to the coffee shop from the PDF. I sit at the window where the photo angle suggests it was taken. The barista, April, Recognizes Keen from a photo on my phone. Every Thursday, always a booth, she says, tapping a corner table. Who with? Different folks, she says, then lowers her voice. Sometimes kids, sometimes a banker-looking guy. Ruth jots names from receipts she remembers. Keen Americano. Ad shot. 3:11 p.m. And we ask for old credit slips. April shrugs toward a manager. I photograph the POS screen instead. 3:11 p.m. Last Thursday. K. Keen. Last 4 digits 1919. We swing by the school. I don't go in. I stand across the street and watch door patterns. A custodian props the staff entrance at 7:28 p.m. for smoke. I note badge swipes. Beep, beep, beep. Then a pause. I think of logs. Eric pulls up his Google location history. 10:40 a.m. Yesterday shows cafeteria coordinates. A screenshot with the tiny blue dot parked by the microwaves. This is admissible, he asks. It's corroboration, I say. It says you weren't in lab 2. Unless someone carried my badge, he whispers. We message Jamie, the kid who paid campus coach. He meets us by the bleachers at 8:05, eyes darting. We thought it was tutoring, he says. You send Venmo. Coach helps with late work. Sometimes he adjusts. Adjusts? Like a wall-pushed plumb by lying. Who told you to use Eric's login? I ask. Jamie flinches. No one, he says, then folds. Keen said Eric's such a helper. We borrowed his badge once to print. He never noticed. My stomach flips. When, 3 weeks ago, I write it down, the way grief writes itself. Sharp, undeniable, dated. At 8:44 p.m. My doorbell cam shows Keen on our porch last Friday, smiling at nobody, adjusting his jacket. I never saw that notification. He leaves a white envelope we never found. I scrub through footage. A trash pickup takes it within minutes. Proof evaporates while you blink. Ruth squeezes my arm. He isn't careful because he hasn't had to be, she says. Headlights flare behind us, and a car idles too long with its lights off. The mini twist arrives like a nail through a tire. Not grades for favors, not only that. It's scholarships. A DM hits Eric's second phone at 9:03 p.m. from Scholarship Help Desk. Finalize profiles by 11:59. Donors expect progress. Attached is a spreadsheet screenshot. Keen_export_3-12, CSV. My lungs stop. The columns, name, GPA, SA_status, FAFSA_PIN. Why would they have that? Donor match, read like a ransom note for futures. Eric taps an older photo, a bank kiosk receipt supposedly for activity verification, $0. 00, printed last Tuesday. These kids are being shepherded through a system that tastes like grooming. Legitimate forms, illegitimate copies, data skimming folded into mentorship. Why didn't you tell me? I ask stupidly. He stares at me as if the answer is the last 3 months. Because you'd burn the building down, he says. And he knows how to make that your fault. My throat sours. Ruth exhales through her nose. Who are you protecting? She asks. Eric blinks. Jamie's sister, Liv, he says at last. She used her mom's info. If this goes public wrong, her family loses aid. The cost rises like water in a basement. I open the Vault app again. A recording labeled board_prep_2-28. Wave plays Keen's voice coaching someone. We show impact metrics. Donors love uplift. Keep the raw data offline. Offline means untraceable, unless a kid cached it. Eric did. My boy, hoarding receipts like a lifeline. We scroll a message from K, swipe you in, and we call it an audit. Your dad will calm down if he thinks it's legit. He knows me well enough to weaponize me. I taste rust. I move to call Alex. Eric grabs my hand. They'll tip him off, he says. He's right. Alex trusts institutions and reputations more than ash and nails. We need a cop, Ruth says. A quiet one. I text a friend of a friend, Detective Rios, who once inspected a condemned house with me because she didn't trust the landlord's math. She replies at 9:27 p.m. Come by precinct. No paper trail yet. As we step outside, my porch camera pings. Motion detected. Front door. 9:29 p.m. The porch is empty, but for an index card tucked beneath the mat. House inspections fail when foundations crack at home. No signature. Keen's phrasing. I pocket it, and drive to the precinct with Ruth and Eric huddled like parentheses. Rios meets us in a back room that smells like copier toner. She listens without blinking, then says, "I can't open a case on whispers. But if you have files, I can advise your next steps and be present when you go official." She plugs my flash drive into an air-gapped laptop. "You did good with file hygiene," she murmurs. "We inventory. Keen_export_3-12. CSV, Venmo screenshots, doorbell cam stills, audio files, the Proton email, the badge photo." Rios prints a single sheet, evidence log, Mason, and dates it, 9:58 p.m. today. "Chain of custody begins here," she says gently. My spine straightens like a measuring tape. She warns me what happens when people like Keen feel heat. They charm, then they smear, then they threaten. I think of the index card and swallow. The moral crossroads is fluorescent lit and unromantic. If I go through Alex, the school will handle it internally, which means silence and reputations. If I go public, Eric becomes a hashtag. "We arrange a meeting," Rios says, "with admin and a board member. You bring copies and someone who can corroborate a payment." "Jamie?" Eric nods, chewing his sleeve. "He'll come if Liv's name stays out." "It can," Rios says. "We protect witnesses by narrowing the claim. Data misuse, unauthorized access, financial impropriety. We don't speculate on motive in front of them." I call Alex from the hallway. "We're setting a meeting," I say. "Quiet." "Then, with who?" "Admin, one board member, Rios present," I answer. "Daniel, are you trying to blow up our lives?" "I'm trying to keep our sons from being detonated." A long exhale. "Fine," Alex says, brittle. "But no accusations. We ask questions. Questions can be scalpels if you sharpen them." I text the principal. She replies shockingly fast. "Tomorrow, 3:30, guidance conference room." Eric leans on my arm and whispers. He already knows we're coming. You can smell a setup the way you smell rain. The guidance office is staged like a hotel lobby, diffuser scent, strategic lamps, the soft murder of carpet. Keen wears a tie with tiny anchors. He looks like trust in human form. Alex sits beside him, hands folded over a legal pad. "We all want clarity," Keen begins, warm as a blanket. Eric's a bright boy. Sometimes boundaries blur when kids help friends. I watch Alex's jaw. It tightens, then relaxes under the spell. Rios leans in the doorway like a question. "We have some questions," I say, and slide copies of the Venmo payments across. Keen glances, smiles. "Tutoring," he says. "I reimburse cash, not to complicate things." "On your Americano?" Ruth says, deadpan. Keen's smile flickers. "Excuse me." 3:11 p.m. "Americano, ad shot, last 4/19/19, she says. He blinks slow. He pivots. "Eric, sweetie, you can tell us if you were asked to use your badge for an audit." The word lands like a trap. Eric opens his mouth, then shuts it, eyes on Alex. "No one asked me," he says. Keen's disappointment is theatrical. "Then how did your login access lab to?" he asks, palms up, priestly. "Cameras will show," I say. "They often do," he replies, without looking away. He slides a paper across. Resolution agreement, draft. It includes phrases like learning opportunity, no admission, privacy protected, community service. Alex's pen hovers. My heart freefalls. Rios clears her throat. "Before any agreement, I'd like to play a recording," she says. Keen's head tilts. "Recordings aren't legal without consent," he says. "Public employees in public spaces have reduced expectations," Rios replies. "And this one was in a hallway." She taps her phone. Keen's own voice fills the room. "Keep raw data offline." Keen smiles wider as if we've provided entertainment. "I'm sure that's spliced," he says. "You wouldn't know authentic evidence if it knocked." Then he leans close to me, voice just for us. "Daniel, save your son. Sign, and this ends." My knuckles split light. Alex's pen touches the paper as Eric whispers, "Dad, check the time on his watch." The second hand on Keen's watch is 5 minutes behind the wall clock. I only notice because time is my religion. "Before we sign anything," I say, "we'll need IT to pull badge swipes for yesterday 10:30 to 11 o'clock and camera logs at Lab 2's door." Keen's mouth says, "Of course," while his hand slides the draft back an inch. The principal appears, a board member in tow. a man I recognize from donor lists. We're here to de-escalate, he says, which is donor for Barry. Rios lays out our plan. We're inviting a student witness and have copies of payment records, she says. The board member blanches. Students' financial privacy can be protected, Rios says. Redactions already made. Ruth opens a tote and produces color-coded folders like a magician pulling scarves. Evidence_1, camera_angles, Venmo_summary. She is, in that moment, the quiet center of the room. Jamie arrives because fear tastes like obedience. He stares at the carpet and says, I paid campus coach, yes. For tutoring. He said donors like hustle. The principal scribbles. Keen smile phrase. A misunderstanding, he says, voice silk with static. An outside contractor using unfortunate language. What contractor? I ask. Keen says a name we don't recognize. Rios notes it, then asks, do you have a W-9 on file? Keen blinks too slowly. I pull the index card from under our doormat. House inspections fail when foundations crack at home, I read aloud. Cute, Keen says. Poetry. Threat. Ruth says, softly enough to make it land harder. Alex exhales like a balloon losing will. Can we please look at the logs? Alex asks. Keen gestures to the screen, IT remotes in. The cursor stutters, opens access_log_10-24, CSV. Lines populate. Time. User. Door. Result. 1036. Keen. Staff entrance. Granted. 1041. Eric. Lab 2. Granted. 1044. System. Gradebook weights. Updated. Eric points. The system entry uses a service account. Students don't have access to that. IT's cursor freezes. Rios smiles without teeth. Who controls service accounts? She asks. Silence gathers like dust. Then the conference room screen flashes, and an incoming call overlays the logs. Unknown caller. Connect? Don't answer. Alex says, but the board member taps the mouse. On speaker comes a compressed, tinny voice. Stop digging. It's cliché until it isn't. The audio dips, rises. Underneath it, the faint clack of a coffee shop register. April's place. King goes corpse still. Rios records with a separate device because she understands redundancy. Identify yourself, she says. The line clicks dead. We return to the logs. IT scrolls. At 1042, the camera angle toggles from door 2 to hallway 1 without a user action. Who changed view? I ask. No record, the IT rep says uneasily. Eric speaks low. He mirrored the feed to his office once, he says. Keen finds his voice. We're done letting you terrorize staff, he says. Daniel, sign, and I'll recommend leniency. Then the principal's phone buzzes. She looks, goes white, and turns it around. An email from Scholarship Help Desk to parents of 3 seniors, CNG the board, celebrating generosity. Attached, the same spreadsheet screenshot with FAFSA pins visible. Gasps, then a terrible quiet. I pull up our audio file. Board_prep_2-28. Wave. I play Keen saying, donors love uplift. Keep raw data offline. The board member finally looks at Keen like a person, not a resume. Explain, he says, voice beige with fear. Keen's mask slips. His mouth hardens. Do you want the school to lose its funding? He hisses. Do you want a scandal? He points at Eric. This child trespassed into systems he doesn't understand. Eric flinches, then stands straighter than I've seen him all year. His voice is quiet and unshakable. I protected Liv, he says. She used her mom's info. If this went wide, they'd lose housing. I took the heat. Alex's hand flies to their mouth. Ruth's pencil stops moving. The room tilts. Rios speaks into the vacuum. We'll need to image Mr. Keen's devices and secure service account credentials now, she says. The principal nods, suddenly blinking fast. Keen laughs once, high and bright. You don't have that authority, he says. You don't have anything admissible. Then the door opens. Detective Rios's partner, badge displayed, steps in with a small Pelican case. We do now, he says, setting it down. Keen reaches for his phone, and his face goes a color I don't have a word for. Fallout is not cinematic, it's paper. Temporary suspension with pay, a district statement soaked in passive voice, my inbox filling with parents' questions pretending to be advice. Eric is still suspended pending review, but the rumor tide shifts. Hero, snitch, liar. All in 1 hour. My supervisor pulls me aside. The district might freeze inspector contracts till this cools, she says, apologetic. Your projects are safe, for now. For now is the color of uncertainty. Rios files an initial report without naming kids. She focuses on credential misuse, data mishandling, and possible financial impropriety. The Scholarship Foundation issues a "We are shocked" note. Donors clutch pearls. Alex's PDA thread fractures like safety glass. At the grocery store, a neighbor says, "We always knew Eric was gifted," leaning on gifted like a slur or a benediction. Ruth buys oranges and stares anyone down who lingers. My phone rings with blocked numbers that breathe and hang up. Jamie's sister, Liv, texts Eric from a new number. "Thank you." He stares at the word as if it might explode. Alex sits at the table with a legal pad, drawing boxes, therapy, school reentry plan, press strategy. I kiss their knuckles, and for once we don't argue about commas in our lives. Eric whispers, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you." I say, "I'm sorry I made telling me feel expensive." Ruth, washing mugs, says, "Good. Now do the dishes of your mess." I send April a thank you. She sends a photo of the banker-looking guy, with Keen, timestamped 3:18 p.m. We run it through a reverse search offline with Rios's help. He's a donor liaison, with a side LLC. Rios's partner finds service account logins from Keen's office IP and a script that toggled camera angles. File named refresh_view. PY. Not sophisticated, the partner says. Just bold. Bold is a word for theft that dresses well. At night, I lie awake and count breaths the way I count bolts. We saved something. We broke something. Eric sits on the floor beside my bed and asks, "Are we okay?" I say yes and mean it in pencil. Then a link lands in my messages, a parent forum thread titled, "Daniel Mason is destroying our school. Repair is granular." We start with therapy, Eric and me together, Alex separately, then all of us in a room where silence can't hide. The counselor asks, "What does safety mean in this house?" Eric says, "Not having to lie to be heard." I say, "Not weaponizing rules." Alex says, "Not bleeding in public for people who wouldn't notice my bruise." Ruth brings soup and leaves envelopes of cash in drawers as if we wouldn't notice. We notice and let her. Boundaries go on paper because that's how I make promises real. If Eric brings evidence, I listen before acting, I write. If Daniel wants to confront, he sleeps on it, Alex adds. If Alex fears scandal, they say why, not don't, Ruth dictates, smiling. We plan with the school. Reentry with a faculty advisor not tied to Keen, data privacy training for staff that doesn't blame kids for adult shortcuts, a donor policy with actual teeth. The board member emails me privately. "We appreciate your restraint." I ignore it. We set conditions for help to others. Jamie can use our notes to file a confidential complaint. Liv's family gets connected with a legal aid clinic through Rios, but we do not play savior. Eric returns the second phone to Rios for imaging. I format the index card into an exhibit, not a threat. Alex drafts a short community post. "We trust process and people, including our son. Please stop speculating about students." We don't check comments. Keen's face disappears from the website. The donor liaison resigns to pursue other opportunities. The Scholarship Foundation announces an audit by an outside firm that sounds like a euphemism for laundering reputations. Rios says charges, if any, will be slow. Slow is honest. Slow is safe. Sunday dinner is at Ruth's, where truths detonate softly because she cuts food small. We pass bread. Eric squeezes my knee under the table. He says, "I'd like to help fix the app." The principal, invited by Ruth like a test, nods. "We could use a student council on data ethics. It's not absolution, it's a blueprint. I'll take a blueprint I can build." Then a new email pings from it. EDU address, subject line, public records request, all communications from Daniel Mason. The records request arrives like a late echo, proof that some people will keep digging even after the ground has settled. I forward it to Rios, copy Alex, and then close the laptop. Not everything deserves our oxygen. Eric sits beside me on the porch steps and watches the quiet street. "I thought doing the right thing would feel brighter," he says. "It feels like work." I answer, and we both smile because work is what we know how to do. We stack the small, steady things. Timelines kept, files named, apologies said, doors left slightly open so voices can meet in the middle. Here's what we carry forward. Love isn't blind faith, and it isn't cross-examination. It's the promise to look for the truth together and live with what it asks of us. Institutions speak in statements. People speak in kitchens. When someone waves, uplift, like a flag, count the hands underneath it. When your child whispers, "You won't believe who set this up," hear the request for a witness, not a hero. We didn't win anything glamorous, just a cleaner hallway, a better policy draft, a boy who knows he can bring me a folder labeled evidence, and I will sit before I speak. Eric returns to school after the review. No parade, no scarlet letter, just a guidance substitute who actually guides, a data privacy session that starts with students instead of blaming them, and a small committee where Eric helps design an alert that warns kids before apps ask for more than they should. Alex and I keep our agreement in writing and in practice. Ruth drops off soup, and we finally stop pretending we don't need it. Rios checks in less and less. Healing is not a headline, it's a habit. One Sunday, we set the table at Ruth's. For plates, one extra, because there's always someone who needs a chair. Eric tells me he wants to study systems, not to control them, but to make them safer. I tell him I'll teach him how to see the hairline cracks before they widen. He laughs, and for the first time in months the sound doesn't bounce off anything sharp. So this is the twist in my son's story that changed everything. It wasn't that he was innocent or guilty, it was that he was brave enough to hold the truth long enough for the adults to grow into it. My part was learning that protection without listening is just another kind of danger. We'll still make mistakes. Bolts will still loosen, weather will still come. But the house stands stronger now, not because we sealed every seam, but because we agreed to check them together. If you're a parent, here's the practical ending I wish I'd known at the start. Write the dates, save the files, ask the questions, and love your kid in a way that makes telling you cheaper than silence. And here's the hopeful picture I keep. Late afternoon light across a school lab, my son's hands steady over a keyboard, a small banner on the screen that reads, "Are you sure you want to share this?" And a room full of futures that no one is stealing.